Ever wondered about the difference between a lager and an ale? Well, beer in all its frothy glory is a fascinating world of flavors and history. Brewing beer is an ancient craft dating back thousands of years to the dawn of civilization. This time-tested beverage is more than just an alcoholic drink, it's a symphony of four simple ingredients: water, malted barley, yeast, and hops. Water forms the base, while malted barley brings sweetness. Yeast, the unsung hero, ferments the sugars into alcohol and carbon dioxide. And hops? They're the spice of the beer world, adding bitterness to balance the sweetness and a range of flavors from citrus to pine. But it's not just about tossing these ingredients together. The magic lies in the brewing process, the recipe, and the brewer's touch. Now let's dive into the world of beers, shall we? Let's start with the beer basics: lagers and ales. These two types are the mothership of all beer styles, each boasting a unique fermentation process that gives birth to a spectrum of flavors, aromas, and colors. Ales are the elders in the beer family, tracing their origins back thousands of years. They undergo what's known as top fermentation. This process happens at warmer temperatures, between 15 to 24 degrees Celsius typically. The yeast, a key player in beer making, ferments throughout the brew, usually at the top. This dance at higher temperatures gives ales their characteristic full-bodied flavor and fruity undertones. Colors can range from the golden hues of a pale ale to the deep, dark tones of a stout. On the other hand, lagers are the relative newcomers, hailing from Central Europe in the Middle Ages. Their fermentation process, called bottom fermentation, occurs at cooler temperatures, usually between 7 to 13 degrees Celsius. The yeast in lagers is more of a deep diver, fermenting at the bottom of the brew. This cold, slow, and steady process results in a beer with a cleaner, crisper taste, often described as smooth or mellow. Color-wise, lagers typically present a pale to amber palette. Now let's talk flavor profiles. Ales tend to be robust, complex, and aromatic, with a wide variety of nuances depending on the style. You might get hints of fruits, spices, or even a malty sweetness. Lagers, conversely, are more about subtlety and balance. Their flavors are often described as toasty or bready, with a hoppy finish that's more restrained than their ale counterparts. In a nutshell, the difference between ales and lagers boils down to the yeast and the fermentation process. Top fermentation at warmer temperatures yields ales, with their complex flavors and wide color spectrum. Bottom fermentation at cooler temperatures gives us lagers, known for their smooth, balanced profiles and generally lighter hues. Remember, lagers are fermented cold and ales are fermented warm. Now that you know the difference between a lager and an ale, let's explore some popular beer styles. Our first stop is amber beer, a versatile ale with a rich coppery color. It boasts a smooth malty character with a balanced hop bitterness. With an ABV around 5 to 6% and an IBU between 25 to 45, it pairs well with grilled meats and spicy foods. Next, we have the American lager. This style is light, crisp, and golden, with a mild bitterness. Its ABV usually hovers around 4 to 5%, and it has an IBU of 8 to 20. It's a great companion for light foods like salads or poultry. The American Pale Ale is a hop-forward beer with a floral, fruity aroma. It has a moderate ABV between 5 to 7% and an IBU of 30 to 50, making it a good match for spicy dishes and grilled meats. Bock beer is a dark, malty, slightly sweet German lager. It has a strong ABV of 6 to 7% and a low IBU of 20 to 30. This beer pairs well with red meat, sausages, and rich sauces. Blonde Ale is light and crisp with a subtle malt sweetness. It has an ABV of 4 to 5% and an IBU of 15 to 28. This style is versatile when it comes to food pairings. Dunkel beer is a dark lager with a malty sweetness, balanced by a touch of bitterness. Characteristically, it has an ABV of 4 to 6% and an IBU of 18 to 28. Pair it with hearty, rich foods for a delightful experience. English Pale Ale is a balanced, slightly fruity beer. Its ABV ranges between 4 and 6%, and its IBU is between 20 and 40. It's a great companion for English cheeses and pub fare. German Helles is a golden, malty lager with a delicate balance of bitterness. Its ABV is typically around 4 to 5%, and its IBU is between 16 to 22. This beer goes well with lighter dishes like chicken or fish. Hefeweizen is a cloudy, wheat-based beer with notes of banana and clove. It has an ABV between 4 and 7% and an IBU of 10 to 15. It pairs beautifully with light, aromatic foods like seafood and salads. The India Pale Ale, or IPA, is a hoppy beer style with a high ABV of 5 to 7% and a high IBU of 40 to 60. Its strong flavors stand up to spicy or rich fatty foods. Kolsch is a light, crisp, subtly fruity beer with an ABV of 4 to 5% and an IBU of 20 to 30. It's a versatile match for a wide array of foods. Pilsner is a golden lager with a crisp, clean taste. It has an ABV of 4 to 6% and an IBU of 25 to 45. Pilsners pair well with a variety of dishes, from cheese to seafood. Porter is a dark, complex ale with notes of chocolate, caramel, and coffee. It has an ABV of 5 to 7% and an IBU of 20 to 40. It's a great companion for smoked foods and desserts. Sour beers are tart and tangy, with an ABV that can range widely from 3 to 7% and an equally variable IBU. They pair well with rich, fatty foods. Stouts are dark beers with flavors of coffee, chocolate, and roasted malt. They have an ABV of 4 to 7% and an IBU of 20 to 50. They pair well with rich, hearty foods and desserts. Triple is a strong, fruity, spicy ale with a high ABV of 8 to 12% and an IBU of 20 to 40. It pairs well with strong cheeses and rich meats. Lastly, wheat beer is a light, refreshing ale with an ABV of 4 to 5% and an IBU of 10 to 20. It's a great match for light dishes like salads and seafood. Each beer style offers a unique taste experience. Fermentation is the heart of beer making. Let's understand why. Fermentation, in the simplest terms, is a metabolic process that converts sugar into acids, gases, or alcohol. In beer making, yeast consumes the sugar in the wort, producing alcohol and carbon dioxide. But it's not just about creating the alcohol that gives beer its kick. The fermentation process also develops the distinct flavors and aromas that make each beer unique. Now let's delve a little deeper into the three main types of fermentation: top, bottom, and spontaneous. Top fermentation is used primarily for brewing ales. In this process, yeast ferments at warmer temperatures, typically between 15 to 24 degrees Celsius. Yeasts rise to the top during fermentation, hence the name. The result? Ales that are rich, robust, and full of fruity and spicy flavors. On the other hand, bottom fermentation is used for lagers. The yeast used here prefers cooler temperatures, usually between 7 to 13 degrees Celsius, and settles at the bottom of the fermenting vessel. This method produces beers that are crisp, clean, and smooth, with a well-rounded flavor profile. Lastly, there's spontaneous fermentation, a wild and unpredictable process used for specialty beers like Belgian lambics. Here, no yeast is added. Instead, the wort is exposed to the open air, allowing wild yeasts and bacteria to naturally ferment the beer. This process can take years and results in beers with complex, sour, and funky flavors, reflecting the unique environment where they were fermented. Each of these fermentation processes contributes to the beer's flavor in its own unique way, creating a wide spectrum of beers for us to enjoy. From the fruity ales to the crisp lagers and the wild, sour flavors of spontaneously fermented beers, there's a beer for every palate out there. The magic of beer lies in the fermentation process. Each type of fermentation breathes life into the brew, transforming simple ingredients into a symphony of flavors. So the next time you sip your favorite beer, take a moment to appreciate the art of fermentation that's gone into every drop. It's been quite a journey through the world of beers, hasn't it? We've navigated from the crisp, clean lagers to the robust, complex ales, each offering a unique flavor profile. We've dived into the colorful palette of beer styles, from the golden hues of a blonde ale to the dark, rich tones of a stout, each with its distinct ABV and IBU, painting a comprehensive picture of the beer spectrum. We've also appreciated the art of fermentation, exploring how top fermenting yeast lends ales their fruity and spicy notes, while bottom fermenting yeast gives lagers their smooth, mellow character. Spontaneous fermentation, the wild card, introduces an element of unpredictability, spawning brews with flavors as varied as the wind. This, my friends, is the beauty of beer, a symphony of grains, hops, yeast, and water, playing together to create a myriad of taste experiences. So the next time you sip a beer, you'll know exactly what you're tasting.